we have liftoff.
We indeed have liftoff. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor, and this is a very special episode, obviously, because I have in person with me the wonderful, the only, the illustrious Charles Coulombe.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. And I'm here with Connor McHugh, the magisterial proprietor of this program.
Magisterial proprietor. Okay. But yeah, so we were just talking, what were we discussing? We were talking about funny names, how to describe me, right?
Yeah, handy, well, differently abled, handy capable. Let's see, alternately, how did that go? You know, there are all these things. I had a very good friend, still do actually, named Richard Guido. And Rich went deaf for a period of 10 years. And then he had the Rush Limbaugh surgery in the back of the head so he can hear again.
Oh, okay, yes.
But he was in between when he was deaf. He was at a party in Greenwich Village, of course. And he began to realize there were a certain number of blacks, a certain number of Jews, a certain number of Hispanics, a certain number of alternatively lifestyle people, a certain number of this, a certain number of that. It was a PC party.
Are you telling me I don't have an alternative lifestyle?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
But it gets worse. So one of the hosts comes up to him and says, "Oh, it's wonderful to have one of the hearing impaired with us." And Rich looks at the guy and he says, "I'm not hearing impaired, I'm effing deaf." Which didn't go over very well, but you know, why should it?
Well, would it go over? Would it go poorly with? Wouldn't it go poorly with, like, wouldn't they think they're offended, or not they're offended? Wouldn't they be unhappy with themselves? This guy, they just missed something him. They just called him something that he doesn't consider himself.
No, and the worst of it was, he wasn't, in that sense, he wasn't a human being to him.
Sure.
It was a what's the word?
A category, or
a category,
a number.
A number. There's another word. Gosh, I'm losing my mind. What? It's the
We
word.
already know you
Quota.
lost it. Quota.
Quota.
You found your mind.
I did. It's come back.
Congratulations.
Well,
Miracles do happen.
as my late father used to say, your head should be more than a hat rack. And I tried. But no, so that really stuck in his head, I must say, that he was there simply because he couldn't hear. And his rather cruel comment to the hosts were, it would be better if I couldn't taste. They didn't think much of the hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
But I mean, contrary-wise,
Is that a category? People who can't taste?
yeah, I don't know what they call them. Well, I mean, a lot of people were like that who got COVID. You know,
Yeah.
They lost the sense of taste. And everyone I know that went through that will tell you that they didn't feel like eating it. Because a large part of wanting to eat isn't just the pain in the belly. Not that I would know what that's like, but the taste is a big part of what makes you hungry.
Yeah.
And if you can't taste anything, eating literally becomes a duty. You force yourself.
Hey, I think eating is a duty for me.
Really?
Yeah. I'm too lazy. It's too much work. It's too much work to eat.
Of course it would be, and you're not being head fed, so
Exactly.
it's
Where's the surface around here? Come on.
not much. You know.
Exactly.
That's what I always tell my nephews and nieces and all that. Well, I'll take you out and feed you, not by hand. Sometimes they have to be reminded. But
They're looking for that.
not particularly. And I think they'd be terribly embarrassed. I would start going, "Here comes the airplane," with a spoon, the way I did when they were little.
No.
Not that I was an overbearing uncle when I was little,
You weren't.
or when they were little.
When you were little, you were no.
You know, I see retirement in my future very, very soon.
I hope not. What would we do?
Well,
What would the world do?
the world would catch on and would go on and would move on. I mean, my late father used to say, you know how you can tell if you yourself are completely irreplaceable and indispensable?
How?
Take a glass of water, stick your thumb in, pull it out. If the water is still there in the hole around where your thumb was, you're irreplaceable. But if it's gone back to surface tension,
You're not that important.
no.
But you are important, right?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I'm certainly around.
Mhm.
And that I'm more around than I'm square, I guess. But no, seriously. Well, I loved his line. He was at, I think, Yale or Harvard, and he'd given a lecture. And they were off, as is often the case with lecturers, after giving a speech at college. They went out drinking. And at some point, after some weird escapade, they tried to cram into a taxi. And they pushed and pushed to try to get him in. And one of them finally says, Mr. Chesterton turned sideways. Says, young man, I have no sideways. And I'm beginning to get there. I know how he feels.
Yeah, I guess I was blessed with not wanting to eat very much.
No, I don't know. Eating can be a tremendous pleasure if the food is good.
I can, but I'm A, picky, and B, just have no desire for it. Like, I don't know why. I have no desire for it. I'd rather just get what I need to get to survive and move on.
Well, now you remind me a little bit, although not much, of the old joke about a lady who's in a restaurant. And she calls the waitress over and says, waitress, this food is horrible. It's disgusting. What isn't overcooked is undercooked. I've gotten better out of the back of dumpsters. It's such small portions. The food's terribly disgusting, but there wasn't enough of it.
Oh, yes, okay.
So,
So yes, makes sense.
yeah, well, I don't know if it makes sense, but it was the joke, and you've got to explain the joke. It's not funny.
Yes, well, some things go over my head when I'm on a podcast. I think that I'm more like, something's more likely to go over my head during a podcast than it is just normally in life.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's just like it's like something about performing, kind of almost like a performance reaction.
Huh. Well, I don't know. And if I did, I wouldn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
But we are here, and what are we podcasting about today anyway?
Well, that's a question. So we're here for in Texas for the Blessed Carl Symposium, and I want to talk to you about the legacy of Blessed Charles.
Wow. That's a very big issue, because his legacy, if anything, is bigger now than it was when I was young. Because of course, before he was beatified,
And that was a long time ago. Hey, you said you were gonna poke fun at me.
yes, I know, but that's different.
Different because it's not you.
Yeah, exactly. Now you
yeah.
understand.
No, I
You know,
completely
it's-
understand.
It's like the old joke. I always think of old jokes. There it is.
How
All my
many old
are
jokes
old.
are there?
Like, well, most of my friends, but oh, very nice. And they're all the same age that I am. So what is that? Never mind. Anyway, no, but there is an old joke. The missionary in Africa talked to one of his new converts, and he said, "Do you understand the difference between good and evilness?" He said, "Oh yes, Father." He said, "Evil is when my neighbor steals one of my cows. Good is when I steal one of his." And that's pretty much my outlook.
See, that one didn't go over my head.
No, I didn't think it would.
I got that
It's okay for me, but not for you. That's
Yes.
what that means.
one. Indeed.
But no, seriously speaking, when I was young, basically the only people who knew about Kaiser Karl were other people who knew their simple European history, which is a
So
small,
no one.
well, in America, yeah,
Well, yeah.
small number. And really in Europe, people of a monarchist persuasion. But what happened was that slowly, and despite the opposition of many in both church and state in Austria, the impetus grew toward his beatification. In the 50s, he got his miracle. And eventually, when a man became Pope who had actually been named after,
Fine.
he pushed the beatification through and wittingly or otherwise created his own namesake.
Yeah.
And that was John Paul II. But from 2004 to the present, when he was beatified, his cultus has grown all over the world, but especially in America. And there are right now at least 20 shrines to him across the United States.
What constitutes a shrine? Because I imagine there aren't churches that are called
No,
Blessed Charles, because you
No.
wouldn't do that until
it
sainthood,
was the
right?
same. No, well, there were very few blessed, like we had Blessed Emperor Sarah Parish out in California,
Oh, really?
Blessed John Henry Newman Parish, I know. And they all, were promoted with their saint.
Yeah, they all.
They changed their names when he did,
Ah,
but it's not common. What constitutes a shrine is a side altar or a space in the church with a picture and usually a relic of the emperor. And there are plenty of these in the United States, and I know of 2 or 3 that are trying to set that up. And the growth in his cultus is very large because people find A, that he does answer prayer, B, well, let's put it this way. If you were my age, you were born in a country that no longer exists as it did, the United States of America. It's gone. It's and turned into, well, a raving freak show is such an unpleasant phrase. Anyway, whatever it is, it's not what I was born into. Carl went through the same thing. He saw his country dissolve around him. He saw he was betrayed by virtually everyone that should have stood by him in terms of government and so on. And in that, to those of us who are older, he gives a wonderful example of not giving in to joylessness and hatred. But for younger people, he also has a lot to say. Firstly, if you come from a difficult or unpleasant background, a broken home or whatever, so did he. And yet, not only did he stay on good terms with both his parents, he got the best from each of them, individual personality-wise. From his mother, he got his very deep piety and his devotion, but not her dourness. From his father, he got his devil-may-care manner, his charm, his easy sense of humor, but none of the promiscuity. So he took the best from both. As I say, if you come from a difficult background, a broken home, whatever, it's a great hate. Another thing, of course, is as a single, because he courted his wife in the proper manner, chastely. He looked for someone who shared his vision and did fall in love with her. It's a great love story. See, and when they married, he said to her afterwards, "Now we must begin to help each other get to heaven," which is what marriage is about. When the children came, well, he was a very
well,
devoted.
they came.
Oh, they came indeed. All 8 by the time he died. Well, actually, the 8th was not born yet. She was little Elizabeth, still in the oven, as we say. What? It's a vulgar phrase. You never heard that before?
I don't think so.
Bun in the oven?
No,
Never heard that?
no.
For sure.
Yep.
Wow. Fine, if you say so.
Online.
All right, well, maybe not. Sounds a little vulgar, though. You wouldn't hang around with people who said things like that, would you? I wouldn't have thought so.
I find it more clever, actually, than vulgar.
But buns in the oven, you find that? I got a bun in the oven. You find that clever?
At least it's more clever than most vulgarity these
Well,
days.
Yeah.
So, like,
all right.
So like people, if I was hearing vulgarity these days,
It would
it
be.
wouldn't be clever enough to be that.
All right. I'll take it as read. I mean, everything has slipped downward. You know, vulgarity is far more vulgar and far less clever than it was. And even nostalgia isn't what it used to be. In my day, we had great nostalgia.
I find sometimes I'm getting the nostalgia from times I did not experience because I'm like movies, for instance. Like I've watched more older movies. Like one of the most recent movies I've watched, like maybe within a couple of years, was the Sword and the Stone.
Oh, yeah.
And I find nostalgic. I find myself being nostalgic for a movie I just saw.
What's funny about that film is it was probably the first movie I remember seeing. It came out in '63, so that tells you how old I was.
I think you're the reason I watched it.
Oh, wow. But you know, I saw it again 10 years later when it came out for in those days, remember, there's no video or something like that. What would happen is that every so often movies would be re-released. So, like there was a big 25-year anniversary release of Gone with the Wind.
Okay.
So it's 1939, 49, 59. So 69, 30-year anniversary. I remember that. We went to see it in the drive-in because you couldn't see it on TV. And then when a movie like that would go on TV, it was a big deal. You know, the television premiere of whatever. Well, so it was with Sword and Stone, and it went through a re-release in 1973. What I found is that all I really remembered from the original film was the opening.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that opening stuck with me all through my childhood.
Have you heard the longer version of that song?
I didn't know there was some. All I know is
Yeah, they've a longer. There's a longer version.
really.
Yeah, I'll have to show it to you after.
Please. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just as good. They actually, so it must have been. There are some words missing from like the actual released version, but it's like maybe one or two verses more.
Wow. All right, I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, I found it on YouTube recently.
All right. Well, see, everything's on YouTube these days. Anyway, so long and the short of it is that with marriage, with fatherhood, with all these sorts of things, when he lost his throne and they were in exile, he threw himself into looking after his children in a way that he hadn't been able to when he was reigning emperor and king. And that was really when his children got to know him. In their memories, that time in Switzerland was the happiest time in their lives. They were there with their father. So there was a lot, as they say, to unpack in Kaiser Karl's life. And I really think it's a good sign that he is being embraced. For Central Europe, I think he has a particular importance because he made the statement on his deathbed, "I am suffering that my peoples might come back together." So that's an important thing. And I can't help but wonder if the growth of his cultus in Central Europe may not, in fact, help that very process by itself, in a sort of natural way.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to put it. So the other thing too is that he shows the kind of self-sacrificial leadership that we moderns are not familiar with. We're quite used to our leaders being ready to send us to die at events like cows, but we're not used to leaders who would die for us.
Yeah. And that's why anybody would be willing to die for their leaders, is if they knew that those same leaders were willing to die for them. Right?
Precisely. It's a two-way relationship. And one of the reasons why, not anymore. One of the reasons why I think patriotism, so-called, is on the wane, is that people are very much aware of the fact that the leadership aren't the ones doing the fighting. Not that I'm a great fan of the draft, but the fact remains that when we had the draft, you had the sons of, well, not daughters, but you had the sons of congressmen and senators serving the armed forces and in harm's way. You don't have that now.
Yeah.
Instead, the armed forces are made up of the deplorables who the leadership attack constantly.
Word from our affiliate, Bishop Sheen Rosaries. You've probably worn through the chain of your cheap plastic rosary. Other rosaries simply can't stand up to the wear and tear of everyday life. Bishop Sheen rosaries are made of solid metal beads and paracord to withstand any condition, and are backed with a lifetime warranty. Upgrade your rosary to a Bishop Sheen rosary made to fit your lifestyle, or buy one for a friend. Each rosary sold supplies 2 weeks of food for a school kid in Uganda. You use the exclusive link down below to help support our efforts here at Plotlines. The link will take you to sheenrosaries.com. Be sure to use the code Plotlines10.
Or the molded people that they mold into something.
Yeah,
it seems like either one or the other.
yeah, and the thing is, though, you won't find the molded in combat arms
Okay.
because, I mean, you might find them in the upper echelon,
Yeah, that's a good point.
but you know, it's very difficult to be a wounded person and go into combat.
Yeah, because you're going to be bad.
Well, the outcome could be unpleasant. There could be badnesses involved, and if you're, you know, a particularly privileged sort of person, you don't really want to encounter badness. Problem, of course, and to put our proper perspective, this year the armed forces are 40,000 short of their recruitment. What's what I want quotas, but they're hiring 87,000 new IRS agents. Now that doesn't tell you where the government's priorities lie.
Not to mention people's like willingness or where their interests lie.
No,
You know, I'm going to steal your money is much more preferable to them than I want to serve and defend the country.
at the risk of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Believe me, coming in and taking your dough, no risk to me at all.
Yeah, I don't think nobody's in danger if they're an IRS agent.
No,
Though they might be danger to themselves.
one could only hope for some kind of relief. But I mean, the fact is, if you think about it, 87,000 new IRS agents. You know, the vast majority of people do not get into trouble with the IRS simply because they don't make enough money to make the expense of time on their cases worthwhile. There's just weren't that many IRS agents. So what do? Well, you go after people who have a large amount of money. 87,000 recruited it before. Will allow the government to go after small timers. That's something to think of fondly. Everyone will get to do their fair share.
Now, how do you reconcile sort of this I guess politicized military with a good desire to want to serve your country? Because like that seems very hard to want to serve your country, or like you may want to serve your country, you may be a patriot. Now, is it healthy for you to join a military that is basically being spoon-fed garbage?
See, that is a question. Probably part of the reason why recruitment is so low,
Yeah.
because the answer for a lot of people is no. Especially if they come to see the threat from their own government as being greater than any threat from abroad. I mean, look, quite apart from the rights and wrongs, objectively speaking, the Ukrainian situation, the fact that a large number of people in our country find Putin preferable to our own president. And again, I'm not talking about realities either way.
Yeah.
I'm talking about perception. I've often said that Biden is Putin's best propagandist. You know, he does his best. Let's say that everything Putin says is a lie. Let's say that. Biden is doing his best to make his lies seem true.
Yeah.
And that's presuming they're all lies, which is a whole other issue. But even if they are, the fact that Biden makes him look good is not. I mean, I had kind of a moment of truth years ago under Clinton when Yeltsin was president. Well, I liked Boris Yeltsin. He was a fun guy. And Clinton, he was a fun guy too, but not, you know, not for me. And I realized, to my horror, that I liked Boris Yeltsin more than I liked Slick Willie. That was a terrible realization. I wasn't happy about it.
Yeah.
Those are the golden days when Pat Buchanan had a column in Pravda. I mean, that was never something I thought I'd live to see.
What's Pravda?
Pravda was the Russian communist newspaper in Moscow.
Why did he have a?
Well, see, they dropped the affiliation with the party
Okay,
after the end of the Soviet Union,
sure,
and then they hired him.
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, that was a time that was so wonderful to live in, when the defeat of communism seemed so complete.
We thought you won.
What's that?
We thought we won.
Well,
we thought we
we
won.
thought we won, and in truth, we might have if it weren't for two problems. One is, I think we mishandled Russia and Central Europe terribly. I said at the time, and I wrote at the time,
Well, to be honest, it sounds like managing Eastern Europe and Russia is just a bad idea.
Well,
Unto itself.
the thing is that at that point, we were in a position to give them a sort of Marshall Plan. You might say to welcome them back to the family of nations.
Sure.
You got rid of communism, it's time to come home. And that would have done, I think, a lot of good. Instead, we bullied them and pushed them and smacked them around. And that wasn't smart. The whole Kosovo thing, nobody remembers. But Russia took that as a real slap in the face. And it was interesting that at the time, the Holy See would not recognize the independence of Kosovo, simply because of the insult it would have been at the time to Russia.
Is that Serbian ethnicity?
Well, it's a dodgy thing, because the area of Kosovo was part of the cradle of Serbian culture.
Yeah.
But now, and you could argue as to whether it was under the Turks or what the story was, but 90% of the people who live there now are Albanian.
Okay.
So you've got a problem where some of the most sacred sites in serfdom
All right.
are in an area primarily inhabited by Albanians.
So basically, we're dealing with Palestine, Israel kind of setup.
Or Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So, obviously it's a setup that is bound for trouble. I mean, one of the things that Central Europe, Eastern Europe, the Balkans have shown is that exaggerated nationalism, I'm not speaking about patriotism now, exaggerated nationalism has been a real curse to that part of the world. I mean, during World War II, for instance, when you had the Polish Home Army, the Ukrainian Forest Guard, whatever they were called, the Lithuanian resistance. First the Germans and then later the Russians, the Soviets. They're fighting the same enemy, but they couldn't collaborate with each other. And occasionally they'd slaughter each other's civilians.
Yep.
Now, what do you do with that? And of course, every side, and this isn't just up there, but all the way down to Greece, every side always remembers what was done to it.
But never what they did.
No.
Yeah.
And you can't, in that sort of setup, you can't exercise the Christian virtue of forgiveness unless you do. And one of the importance, going back to Kazakar, one of the big important things about him was that he epitomizes the Habsburg supra-nationality.
I read that. I read super nationality recently. I'm like, is that a new word, or was that always in existence? Or I guess how old is that?
I don't know, but anything that's
You
super,
make it up.
no, I didn't make it up. But anything that's above is super. It's, I would say, supernatural.
Well, it's not, but isn't that usually supernatural?
Yeah, but supernatural, natural, supranational. It's the same word. Though.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Uh,
But where does that linguistically come in? So the difference.
Goes,
Is that in English, like a British English thing?
I don't know. I'm not going to try to snow you. I don't know. The no. So what you're left with then is a setup where the traditional location of the House of Habsburg in Central Europe is really vital to Central Europe maintaining itself.
Yeah.
Between Putin on the one side and Soros on the other.
Yeah. Now, interesting, there's just so much going on in Hungary, Italy, Poland these days. So what is your take? Well, let's play a game. Which country is what country is closest to bringing back the Habsburg monarchy?
Oh, I don't know. You see, it's hard to say because so often politicians will play with the idea, but they'll never carry through because just as one of the Habsburg rules was protecting their nationalities from each other, there's also, as Francois put it, protecting my people from their politicians. The problem you've got is the politicians do not want people protected from them.
Really?
No, it's true.
Shocked.
I mean, well, so far for decades, the fox has been governing the hen house. Now, which of the foxes are in favor of bringing back the farmer?
None. None. Absolutely none.
Well, not absolutely. Every
Well,
now and then you
okay.
get a fox who says, if this place were decently managed, there'd be more chickens for me to eat.
Wait. Now I feel like the
Like the analogy is getting away from
yes,
us.
I feel like the analogy is falling apart.
Well, no analogy lasts forever, but no, it's not falling apart completely in the sense that if you look at General Monk, who got rid of Cromwell and son, or you look at Franco even, they knew that the regime they either created or inherited could not survive on its own.
And Franco offered the rule of Spain to Otto.
He did.
Do you think it was a mistake, A, for Franco to make the request, or B, for Otto to not accept it?
Well, the reason why Otto refused it was because the great grandfather of the present king, Alfonso XIII, rescued him and his family from Madeira. And he felt honor bound gratitude to them. So there was no way he was going to take their throne.
Do you think it would have been better if he did, though?
Probably. But, not having a crystal ball, I probably didn't know that.
Well, I mean, given that the Habsburgs were on the throne of Spain before the Bourbons were, do you think that, do you think at least from a monarchist perspective, there's a more legitimate claim in that sense, or no?
No, not really, because the Habsburgs signed off on the treaty ending the War of Spanish Succession.
But even with that, like, I mean, isn't there arguments over whether or not a treaty can
Oh, I know.
can really determine
I
what
know. I know. My head will explode.
like the English determining that primogeniture or that men don't go first in the line of succession.
As far as that goes, and you see this in a number of countries, including Sweden, where the crown prince had the title stolen from him a year after he was born and given to his older sister by Parliament.
At least
Ob-
England tried to do that. England tried to do that beforehand,
Well, indeed,
but they
but
lost anyways.
obviously, I think that those house rules should be in the hands of the House, not Parliament.
Yeah.
Because there the presumption is that Parliament is sovereign, not the sovereign. And if you're going to do that, you might as well just have a republic.
Yeah.
That way you can be owned outright by your masters instead of only nominally.
So treaties, because they were conducted by the families.
They were given by the families. Of course, you get into some weird things with the treaties, and I'll explain what I mean. That treaty that ended the Spanish succession,
Treaty of Utrecht.
the Treaty of Utrecht, also had in it the renunciation of the throne of France by Philip V for himself and his descendants, for the express purpose, and this is in the treaty, of keeping France and Spain from ever being ruled by the same ruler.
Yeah.
All right. So you're fast forward 19th century, you have the Carlist Wars, The Carlos are obviously the main line, the older line.
Also, yeah, so why would Franco didn't bring back the main line,
Well,
or did he?
no, here's the problem. This is why I say my head hurts. In 1936, the main line died out. And the Alfonsinos became the senior line.
Okay,
But there was a law in Spain from way back when that any branch of the royal family that took up arms against the king could never inherit the throne.
okay, so
So as far as the Carlos were concerned, a lot of them anyway, the Alfonsinos could never be king.
and then which branch does it?
The next senior branch was the House of Bourbon Parma.
But who's wait, never mind. Okay, yes, go on. Sorry.
So
I'm getting
Otto's
lost
uncle,
too.
well, you remember Otto's mother was Zita of Bourbon
Yes,
Parma.
exactly.
Her brother Xavier was nominated by most of the Carlists as their king, Don Javier. And it was Don Javier and his son, Don Alfonso, who were played off against Don Juan and Juan Carlos by Franco. He would occasionally favor the one, then favor the other, and go back and forth. But finally, having served under Alfonso XIII, he had no interest in Don Juan, the son of Alfonso. He thought was too liberal. So
Which is isn't that
the son of Alfonso, the father of Juan Carlos,
who became
King.
king? So he gave him the throne anyways.
but not to the father. The father was still alive.
Oh, okay. Wait, but I thought you said that
All right,
the
Alfonso XIII's son. Okay, he had two sons.
Yeah.
The oldest son was called Don Jaime.
Yeah.
Don Jaime had he was deaf and blind, so it was figured he could never be king anyway, and he was persuaded by his father to give up his claim to the throne of Spain. But when the main line of the French Bourbon died out, the Spanish Bourbon became the next senior, specifically the Carlists. They die out. And so for those French royalists who refused to accept the House of Orleans, they looked to first the Carlists and then to the Bourbon Parma. Or, sorry, not the Bourbon Parma. Yeah, the Alfonsinos. Mr. Tick wants to give me Lyme disease. Didn't work out well for him, though.
bugs like you.
I can't blame them. So, no, so what happens then is that this is a little confusing.
Yeah.
So let me see, what's an easy way I could do this? All right, we'll do it like this. House of Bourbon, you ready? Main line, the House of France, becomes extinct in 1883 in the main line, gone. Second, the Carlist line, senior line of the House of Spain, extinct 1936. The Alfonsinos, now Juan Carlos and his son Felipe. After them, the Bourbon Parmas.
Okay.
And then after them, the Bourbons, the two sisters. All right. So, and then the very last, the House of Orleans, which descends from Louis XIV's brother.
Okay, so the Orleans are the youngest.
Yes, but the only undisputably French branch.
Meaning because
They've always lived in France. They have no connection to any other country. And so their proponents would argue, because of the Peace of Utrecht, they're the only ones to be kings of France. The legitimists, after the death of the last Carlist and the Don Jaime renouncing the throne of Spain, well, he's renounced the throne of Spain. So therefore, ipso facto, he is the senior Bourbon, that we know, and he can be claimant to the throne of France. Now, I know what you're saying, but he's deaf and blind. Well, that's true. But he had children and got married, or got married and had children, I should say.
Was he always deaf and blind?
And his son, Alphonse, he became an active claimant to the throne of France. And it's his son, the Duc d'Anjou, who is now the Louis the D'Anjou, is called Louis the 20th by his supporters and friends. Those are legitimates.
He's incredibly likable, at least from
Yeah.
my perspective.
He writes good stuff and everything else.
Yeah.
Now, the Orleaniste is Jean, who I guess would be Jean VII,
Count of Paris.
the Count of Paris now. He was the Duc de Vendôme while his father was alive. Anyhow, meanwhile, the Bourbon farmers, let's say Don Javier took over the claim to the Spanish throne of the Carlists. His son, Carlos Hugo, did the same, but before his father died, he married a Dutch princess who converted. This was a big deal in the Netherlands, big problem in the 60s. And then he became a communist
Wonderful.
and renounced the throne. But then, and his younger brother, Enrique Sisto,
But wait,
Henri
there's
Sisto,
more.
what's that?
But
But
wait,
wait, there's more. But there's never an end to this stuff.
Yeah.
What should happen? But that Enrique Sisto is accepted not as king, but as regent when his father dies by most of the Carlists. Then his brother, the older brother, says, no, just kidding. And I'm the head of the Carlists. So a minority support him. He died, and his son, who was his heir, of course, asserted his right to his father's claims. He and his uncle are not on the best of terms. And it's all a problem. Fortunately,
Like, yeah.
well,
All of it. I mean, in a sense, like, I mean, you have the Alfonso,
the Alfonsinos in Spain.
Alfonsinos, like, and then you have the Carlists who can't decide what's up and what's down.
No, it gets pretty difficult. And then, although, well, look, it's important to remember that their divisions were not just over genealogy, but also ideology, because the Carlists favored a very traditional monarchy, whereas the Alfonsinos traditionally wanted a crown republic like England. So
Yeah.
these things, believe me, they're difficult to understand in 2-second sound bites, but they
No,
make sense.
I'm just, it just makes me sad.
It makes you sad.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Just how much division there is just within, like, you know.
Oh, yeah.
this-
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I mean, especially, well, I neglected the Bourbons, the two Sicilies, but it's their turn now.
Oh, no.
They are, of course, the next junior branch to the Orleans.
The Archduke was really not kidding about you talking until you had said everything you need to say.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
no, I mean, the
Continue.
problem is, I'll tell you, rarely is this stuff set out as plainly as I'm trying to.
No, yeah, you
And-
are doing a fantastic job.
And one reason why people go in for all sorts of weird fake orders and things like that is they don't know about this.
Yeah, they don't know who's who,
No,
and
and so
they just want to grasp onto anything that seems or smells of tradition
Yeah.
or nobility, but they don't know what nobility is or where it came from, or
well, the difference between nobility and royalty,
well, that's, you know,
and that
sometimes that to me even sometimes that seems synonymous in some ways. It's in the sense of a royal is noble.
yes, but a noble is not necessarily royal. It
Yes,
gets, and
exactly.
again,
Yeah.
you have to know your history. I mean, for example, there are in the Holy Roman Empire, there were different ranks of nobility that had different lands, different fiefs. The larger nobility were called the Reichsmittelbare, which meant that if you think of feudal lords, they had no feudal lord other than the emperor himself.
Okay.
All right. A Congress of Vienna, all of these houses were stripped of their sovereignty, but they were given a reward or a consolation prize. They were all made royal marriage.
So they could marry into a prince's
Or a king or a
King
queen could
or-
marry one of these.
yeah, prince or king or princess.
Yeah, like, you'll see, this with a lot of the Habsburgs were married, they marry a prince so-and-so. Well, why is that okay? But Franz Ferdinand marrying Countess Kotek was not. Well, that's because the prince so-and-so is Reichsmittelbar, and the Koteks are just ordinary counts. Which, I mean, for those of us who aren't noble, that's, what do you mean ordinary counts? Well,
Yeah,
there were ranks,
they're ordinary counts.
just ordinary counts, just like anybody else.
I'll take being a count.
Well, I'm happy as a mister. At any
What about
rate,
a sir? Are you not a sir?
no, I don't have a British knighthood.
Only the British can make knights that have sirs?
Yes,
Why?
I don't know, it's just the rules. I don't make it, I
That
live
seems
by it.
illogical. What about Catholic orders?
The chevalier.
How is that? What is that translated? That's not,
It says knight.
oh, so they can't,
So strictly speaking,
that,
unless somebody has a British knighthood, it should not be called sir. It should be called chevalier or cavaliero or cavaliere.
again, that's all like, it's not even, that's not English.
Well, I know that. That's because it's not an English concept. But I mean, the sad truth of the matter is that in the English-speaking world, there's only one fons honorum, only one font of honor, other than the things like the Order of Malta and so forth, and that is King Charles III.
Well, what are knights? Wait, then what are Knights of Columbus? Nothing?
They're not. I mean,
They're not any,
not like that.
They're
no.
not really
They're not a
knights.
chivalric order. No, they're not really knights.
Oh.
And I speak as a knight, both of a knight of Columbus and a knight of Peter Claver.
or what about those? Are they also not
They're the
knights?
same like Knights of Columbus.
Okay,
They're not chivalric orders.
because they weren't, okay, bishops can prescribe,
They can bishops can make knights, and
and
of course knights can gather in private associations, but that doesn't make them an order of knighthood. Again, there are degrees and ranks. All right, let me explain.
no, I
Knighthood.
cannot believe this, actually. I don't know why I can't believe it, or like, I guess it's shocking that like, that an order is, so an order basically can only be constituted by a ruling house. Is that
Yeah.
but the Pope can do it?
Well, and has, yes.
Yes, so, but as the bishop is a,
The bishop can make knights, but there's a difference between being a knight and being in an order,
okay,
just like there's a difference between being a priest and being in an order.
okay,
You
yes,
with me?
yes, I am. But
All
they
right.
wouldn't have, and they wouldn't have the same title.
No. And basically, let's go back to the beginning of knighthood. All right. Knighthood was, you might say, the baptism of the military profession by the church. Now, in the earliest days of knighthood, there were three kinds of people who could make you knight: a bishop, sovereign, or another knight. All that did was give you knighthood, which was conceived of as a sort of corporation, a general profession.
That didn't give you a title or anything.
Well, in England it did. You would serve whoever knighted.
Okay, so what,
Early on.
so, but what if a British
Well,
bishop?
I'm gonna get there.
Okay,
I get
sorry.
there. So then you have the Crusades. And as a result of the Crusades, you have the great religious orders of knighthood. The Order of Malta, Knights Templar, St. Lazarus, Holy Sepulchre, Teutonic Knights, and then in Spain, you had Montesa, Alcantara, Calatrava, Santiago. And there were a few others, but these orders were religious orders of knights. They were knights, but they were organized as religious orders. But then the sovereigns of Europe looked at that and they thought, boy, this is a great idea. I'd like to have some of my best knights together in orders. So that was the origin of the royal orders of knighthood.
Okay,
So that's things like the Golden Fleece, the Saint Michel in France, the Order of the Garter in England.
what's the Holy, Knights of the Holy Ghost?
That's the French order,
Okay, what is that? in
the
French?
Saint-Esprit. And that their history and that of the Order of Saint Michel are kind of linked. The Saint Michel was the older order, but then they came up with the Order of the Holy Ghost, and then I think you had to be a member of Saint Michel to get the Holy Ghost.
That just sounds funny regarding you have to be in Order of St. Michael to get the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, well, yeah. If not, you can't even be confirmed. But the too bad for you. But seriously, these orders spread, and as time went on, as knighthood as a military profession ceased, you began to have hereditary knighthoods. Now, again, these are connected to feudal land holding and stuff like that. But the basic idea was that you had certain families whose members had always become knights, and that meant raising X number of troops from their lands. Well, in time, they became hereditary knights. You have them in Germany, in Italy, very few in France. And in England, they call them baronets.
Okay, so interesting. Okay.
So these hereditary knighthoods are quite different. The other thing the English did was interesting. Obviously, all the while, you still had people who were knighted, were not members of an order. In England, it eventually became the rule that only the king would make knights.
Okay.
So, but he still made these independent knights, who in English were called knights bachelor, meaning they weren't members of an order. But in the 1920s, they organized the Imperial Society of Knights Bachelor.
So they made a society of
But
independent
it's
knights.
not an order; it's a society of independent knights. And
Okay.
well, to show you the same phenomenon in a different light, in addition to the great religious orders of knighthood, the Pope, being a sovereign, he created his own orders of knighthood. St. Gregory, St. Sylvester, the Golden Spur.
They have women now.
That's a whole other issue. But these orders of knighthood were created, but they were not orders. They were more decorations. It's not like the Golden Fleece and the Garter, where you have annual services for these guys. There was no organization. But what then happened in the 20th century was you started getting national societies of papal knights. So, although there's no central place for the order of St. Sylvester, say, if you've got the Sylvester, the Gregory, or any of these other papal orders, and you live in Britain, say, you could join the British Society of Papal Knights. And they have annual meetings and religious exercises and stuff. I mean, it's all very curious. And then just to add helpfulness to things, you began to have spurious knighthoods developing. That is to say, orders of knights that claim connections to
Older orders.
right.
Like aren't there like knights or knights that follow the Templar?
Well,
but aren't.
There are. But see, there again, you get all sorts of weird things because there was a group in France at the time of Napoleon that called itself the Templars. They did not make any claim to be a direct descent from them, but so they liked the idea. But they broke into a million pieces, and various remnants of those actually claimed to be descendants of the Order of the Knights. To confuse things further, confusion being the guardian of truth, who says that, but anyhow, there is a religious order of a revived Knights Templar in the Catholic Church that nevertheless does not claim real descent from the Templars, but they live by their rule. You see, isn't this wonderfully confusing?
And there are Protestant knights.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are indeed.
Also bizarre.
Well, see what happened there in the case of the Teutonic Knights in the Netherlands, or the Knights.
Which doesn't make any sense. How can you have Teutonic Knights?
Because the Netherlands is part of the Holy Roman Empire.
I know, but in the sense of Teutonic,
They thought themselves that way then.
they're German.
Yeah,
But
but
they're
they
Dutch.
thought of themselves as German then. And after all, what is the German word for German?
Deutsch,
What is the English word for Dutch?
Dutch.
What can you tell me about those two words?
Very similar.
Yeah, how come?
Because they,
We're the same thing once.
okay,
That's why we talk about the Pennsylvania Dutch, who were German.
yeah.
Pennsylvanische Dutch.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because everyone thought they were Dutch. Or everyone thought they were Dutch, but they were actually German.
Yeah,
Because they called themselves Deutsch, and everyone was like,
that's Dutch.
that's Dutch, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, we're not gonna correct you. Apparently.
Everybody calls themselves what they want to,
Well, no, aren't these other people calling them that?
Yeah.
Or
but they took the name. I mean,
ah,
well, this is life,
I know.
I mean, today some people claim to be intelligent and others sane. And those are both obvious lies for the vast majority of us. But what?
Huh?
Huh? Anyway. I don't know about you. I remember my late father used to say, there are only two I trust in the world, thee and me. Sometimes I wonder about thee. Now that's an old saying, but they would add to it. Now and then I'm really not too sure about me. And I'm trying to live by those words.
You don't trust yourself.
On some occasions, in certain contexts, sure. Others, maybe not.
Yeah,
Self-acceptance is the key to mental health.
sure. If you say so.
Devices, or not,
If you say so.
or not.
Or not.
But at any rate, bring the whole knighthood and the Bourbon to a close.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even get to the pyramids of Two Sicilies.
Oh, we are, though. I haven't forgotten them.
Oh no.
But it actually feeds into it, though.
Fine.
You'll see why. So the Bourbon of the Two Sicilies have their own split.
Wait. Is it because of liberalism?
Well, not exactly.
Oh no.
Not exactly.
I prefer when they split over.
You like
politics.
something, you like things clear. Well,
Yes,
there is a split over politics, but not the way you're thinking.
okay.
All right.
Yes.
So basically, it's because it was a question of whether one member of the family who was after the main line died out. One member of the family was the next heir, but he had become a grandee of Spain. So the question was, did that make him ineligible to be king of the Two Sicilies? And it's on that the whole thing rests. So his descendant is called the Duke of Calabria.
Wait, so because he had a Spanish,
Because he was a Spanish grandee,
okay, what's a grandee?
highest ranking nobleman in Spain.
Okay, so basically,
Not a grandee, I'm sorry, he became a Spanish infante,
oh,
a member of the Spanish royal
so a
family.
prince,
So what's that?
isn't that a prince?
Yeah. So there was the question, can he be the rightful heir to the Two Sicilies?
You're gonna have to make me a chart
It would probably help. I could. So
of
his-
nobility and family trees and splits.
well, see, this is the fun part of this, and it has actually a lot of, how do I put it, relevance for what we're talking about. So his descendant is the Duke of Calabria. Now, his opponent, who's the next close, the grandson of the next closest heir, is called the Duke of Castro. Now, the royal, the prime, the highest ranking order of knighthood in the Bourbons in Italy is called the Constantinian Order. Constantinian Order was originally founded by the Byzantine Emperor.
Oh, I was actually thinking, oh, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
thought they were just,
Go figure, you gotta figure they just picked the name and liked
yeah,
it.
exactly, that's what I was thinking.
So they read the novel Constantine and thought, that'd be great.
That's a great name.
Yeah, well, no, they bought it from the Byzantine Emperor. He was in exile.
They bought it.
After the fall of Constantinople in 1453, the heir to the Paleologs was in exile. He was out of dough, and he sold the Grand Mastership of the order to an Italian prince named Farnese.
Were there any members of said knighthood at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he sold the Grand Mastery to the Prince of Parma, who was the Farnese. Farnese's die out. The remaining heiress marries a Spanish Bourbon, and that's the beginning of Bourbon Parma. But the first Bourbon Duke of Parma leaves Parma and goes on to become king of the Two Sicilies. So now you have two Constantinian orders, Parma and Two Sicilies.
This makes my Wikipedia searches so much more clear.
Thought it might, but wait, it gets worse. You remember I told you about the split between Castro and Calabria?
Yeah.
Well, two Constantinian orders of the Two Sicilies. Two. So now I got three.
Yeah,
Isn't that neat?
that's great.
But wait, it gets better. The Holy See recognizes both Neapolitan Constantinian
But
orders.
not this.
Oh, the Parmesans too.
The Parmesan.
The Parmesans too.
Okay, gotta love that it's Parmesan.
Yeah, they have chicken and veal. But the thing is that you will find one of the Constantinians, the Two Sicilies, they use the church of Santa Croce al Flaminio, and the other uses San Giorgio.
Can the church just say like, come on, work this out, people?
Well, they could, or they could actually make a decision for it. What makes it worse is that a few years ago, there was an accommodation between the two branches because the Duke of Castro has only daughters. So it was agreed that he and the Duke of Calabria would basically share the headship. And then when Castro died, the headship would go to Calabria's son without any question.
Because, well,
He's the only male heir.
how
But
can
that lasted about a year.
Oh, why? Why did it end?
Well, then Castro decided to name his daughter, his heiress.
Can there be? Why?
Why would you do that? I don't know. Ask him.
I'd rather not.
I can't pretend to know.
I can't pretend I have any idea how I would even ask that question.
Well, you can't.
Is he dead?
What's that?
Is he dead?
No, he's very much alive.
Oh, yeah.
But you still can't ask
Oh,
him.
then, yeah, of course. Well, I mean,
Even if he was sitting here, if the Duke of Castro was sitting next to us, I would not dream of asking him that question.
oh, I would.
I wouldn't.
Why?
I would just say, isn't that nice, Your Highness?
You're not a good interviewer. That's because you don't interview.
Well, that could be part of
You
it.
get interviewed.
I'm not a bad interviewee, I think.
I would agree.
But in terms of interview, well, I mean, it depends also who I'm interviewing.
You wouldn't ask the Duke?
No, I would not. But so you see, every branch of the House of Bourbon has a dispute like that.
But the Habsburgs don't have that.
No, they don't.
How in the see? This is how it's going to come back to Blessed Charles.
Exactly.
How
If-
is that?
Well, let's put it this way. If there are any divisions in the House of Habsburg, they keep them out of the public eye. I mean, the
Would
Bour-
that mean that it's way less petty or just smart?
I don't know. Maybe both. I don't know.
Because I mean, it seems very petty to be very public about such disputes.
Well,
Inlet,
it is. Let's put it this way. If you've inherited a side in a dispute like that, it's very tough to let go of it.
because you lose out. Right?
You don't lose out. It's a betrayal of your father and your grandfather, all the way back to whenever the dispute started.
Americans don't have as much difficulty with that.
No, well, you got to bear in mind, we do it differently. We don't place really a great deal of value in family.
That-
That's why our divorce rate is so high, and actually always has been. United States, even back in the wonderful days before 1960, we always had a much higher divorce rate than most countries. Now, mind you, they've all caught up with us, so we were advanced.
I'm guessing that we had the same before divorce was a thing. As everyone.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we're a very mobile society. Abandoning your family and moving on was an easy thing to do historically, especially when the frontier was up and going.
Well, isn't it even more or more prominent once women have gotten more into doing it? Because
Oh, well, then
it was mostly men that would be.
it was bad enough when it was only men.
Well, yeah, like it was only men, and now and then
Chicks dig it.
Now it's women because a lot of reasons probably. There's a lot of social reasons that
Well,
are
there are. Basically, the whole world has become a big bordello. And I mean that in the best possible sense.
Is it a fancy one?
No, actually, that's the sad thing. Imagine a Motel 6 was a bordello. That's the state of the world for me. Well, and not just a bordello, but a murderous, bloody bordello.
Yeah. There. I mean,
But I mean that in a nice sense.
in a nice manner, you know.
I'm celebrative. But seriously, at any rate, long and the short of all this good stuff, there are many phony orders, phony this and phony that. And there is a gentleman in Palm Beach, actually I think he's dead now, but anyway, he claimed to be the heir to the Byzantine Empire. And for a cash consideration, would make you a member of his Constantinian order, which was the real one, because he was the Byzantine Emperor.
But the Byzantine Emperor had sold it.
You know, that was a thing. And as the rightful heir to the empire, he could sell it.
I do prefer to say that all the things that I don't like that were done previously, they just weren't legal.
Yeah.
So they didn't happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we
I
could do that if we could do it with gender. Why can't we do it with historic events?
I mean, in some sense, if you like, God does that, but God doesn't recognize the legal judgments of divorces.
Well, that's true,
So they're just playing God, aren't they?
in a sense. Although I like what my nephew Albert used to say when he was young, because I think it was the most honest expression of modernity I've ever heard in my life. You know what it was? I don't like that, so it's a lie. And I thought, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. But at any rate, the one of the fellows was a big one in the Byzantine Constantinian order,
The Palm Beach one.
the Palm Beach one, the real one. He was of some note in Los Angeles, and he was pushing me to join it. Well,
How do you meet these people?
be in the wrong place at the right time. But at any rate, I didn't want to annoy him, but I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't interested and that I knew something about it. So what I told him, which is actually true, I said, look, I have friends in each of the three Bourbon Constantinian orders, and I'm not joining any of them for fear of annoying the other two. Now you bring me a fourth? And he left me alone after that. So I would just say in all of this that there is, I mean, obviously, the vast majority of people have very little interest in any of this. And what these sorts of divisions have done, if anything, when they hit the papers, they become a little, because everyone wants to think the worst of monarchy anyway. We all feel good about that because it makes our own little selves feel better about ourselves. And when you consider what we accept in everyday life and how wretched we've allowed everyday life to become, you can understand why we would need to do this.
And then critics just point to like minor or way less like problems within royal families, and say, oh, this is the reason why
we're a republic.
Yeah, why we're a republic
and run by the likes of Joe Biden.
Yeah, exactly. So like behind us, don't pay attention to anything, anything behind us.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, it's true. I mean, there is also the constant expectation. We hold the royals to a higher standard. We hold our politicians, but our politicians actually rule us.
Yes, in some sense, well, you should hold everyone to a high standard.
Yeah,
and that's the
well, of course, starting with ourselves,
well,
and we know
definitely.
we can't do that because that might become self-hatred, which is unhealthy.
Well, yes, and that involves Catholic guilt.
Yeah, you know what another word for Catholic guilt is?
Conscience.
Realism. Well, conscience. You know, and actually, think about it. We all wish other people felt guilt. I mean, if somebody yells at you or smacks you, don't you wish you felt a sense of guilt about that?
Yep.
All right, that's point one. Point two. Do you think you yourself are always perfect, always do the right thing?
Of course.
Well, you short circuit the argument. But if you have a scintilla of sense, you know that, well, you're not always wonderful. Which, if
How
it's
can you say that?
living in the world for 61, almost 62 years,
I feel so insulted.
I know.
On my own show.
That's right. And I have only one word, tough. Tough for those who can't spell. But honestly,
That's most people. Most people can't spell these days.
yeah,
They don't know what words are.
the
They don't
hard
know what
words,
mean.
the hard words are, I myself may be the problem. I myself may be the bad guy. We like to look outward to find people to blame or be contemptuous of.
Well, everyone does evil things, but I don't do evil things. So
Well, no, by virtue of being me, I understand how that works. But of course, it's a lie.
indeed.
And so we need to try to cultivate in ourselves the sense of right and wrong, the sense of guilt that we wish everybody else had, especially those people who annoy us. And if we do that, if we try to avoid being to sound like the golden rule, but if we try to avoid doing it to others what we don't want done to ourselves, we'd be amazed how much better everything would become.
Only politicians would do that.
Well, didn't I mention people, human beings?
They're not people.
Actually, the old joke about why it is they started using politicians for medical experiments instead of rats?
Boy,
Well, two reasons. One, the lab technicians started forming emotional attachments to the rats. And two, there's some things you just can't get rats to do.
yes, they're not as filthy as politicians.
That's right. Not as flexible. But at any rate, so there we are. I've said everything I could say. Well, for the moment, anyway.
That's insane.
I'm running out of steam.
Well, how does everything you said connect with Blessed Charles?
Funny you should ask. Because a lot of people collect orders and titles, this sort of thing. Charles was a member of several, the most important of which was the Order of the Golden Fleece. Before he would accept membership, he demanded that the rules be translated so he could read them and make sure that he could live up to them. And when he was knighted,
Or they translated them?
German from Old French, and they had to find some scholars to do it
Yeah,
because it was, but they did it, and he was able to take it.
is that like your not yours, but you wrote the foreword to it, the chivalry book?
The which,
Chivalry,
yeah,
is that similar? Those types of
those types of rules, yeah. So he read through that, and he decided he could live by it, and so he took the oath. Now this, joining the Order of the Golden Fleece was a pro forma thing for the members of the House of Habsburg. They all did it. Well, not all of them. And it was just a ritual you went through, like graduation from junior high, but not with him. And he treated his marriage the same way, and then his coronation as King of Hungary. He did not believe in empty ritual. And I'll tell you, when the Queen died, and they had the King's succession thing, it was done in beautiful language that comes to us in the Middle Ages.
Chaucer.
Oh, well,
Is it
not quite, but
Or
if I can pull it up quickly, I will give you.
Shakespearean.
Well, you'll see. It was done not just in cities all over Britain, but all over Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the Crown Commonwealth.
I did a legacy of Queen Elizabeth with Vendée Radio with Peter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, mind you, they weren't all the same, but this was the basic language. And here it is. Whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to his mercy our late sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth II, of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George. We, therefore, the Lord spiritual and temporal of this realm, and members of the House of Commons, together with other members of her late Majesty's Privy Council, and representatives of the realms and territories, aldermen, and citizens of London, and others, do now hereby, with one voice and consent of tongue and heart, publish and proclaim that the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege Lord Charles III. By the grace of God, of the kingdom of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of his other realms and territories, King, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, to whom do we acknowledge all faith and obedience with humble affection, beseeching God, by whom kings and queens do reign, to bless his majesty with long and happy years to reign over us. Given at St. James's Palace on this 10th day of September in the year of our Lord 2022. God save the king.
They did our year of our Lord.
What's that?
I'm amazed they did what is it? The year of our Lord.
Yeah.
That's mighty impressive.
Mighty impressive. Well, also saying, beseeching God, by whom kings and queens do reign,
Sure, yeah.
to bless his majesty with long and happy years to reign over us.
Well, I mean, my point more is just like academia has so much has gone over to central or what is it? Common era, you know.
Right, which they didn't do with this.
Yeah, which
And well, it opens up, whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to his mercy. That's talking about the judgment.
Mhm.
Our late sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth II. This phraseology, most of it comes to us from the Middle Ages, from the Catholic texts.
Yeah.
And what's funny about it, of course, is that in all the multiple times that the accession was read throughout Britain, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, it was read by either or both Republicans and atheists.
Yeah.
And yet they all felt the need to go to the, to conform to the custom, to wrap themselves briefly in the mantle of the monarchy. I wish, of course, that those words meant what they say. And blessed Emperor Charles, for him, they had to. He did not believe in empty ritual, which I tell you is a tremendous facet of the Anglo-Saxon mind. If you don't believe me, compare our abortion laws, our divorce laws, our everything else, and what's on our money, in God we trust. With the fact that, my two favorite examples in Washington, every session of the Supreme Court opens with the bailiff, whatever he is, saying, after he calls it to order, God save the United States and this honorable court. Would it be great if we had that? If that had
wanted that.
any relation? And then similarly, the Supreme Court every year attend the Red Mass at St. Matthew's Cathedral. What a lie. Well, maybe not now, but certainly it has been for decades up to it.
Or quite a lot of that.
And the thing is, this sort of empty ritual that makes us feel good, very Anglo-Saxon. And it is precisely what Charles was not. Imagine if all these things we say and do in these kinds of rituals were true. What if we really believed in a United States indivisible under God? What if we really believed the under God part?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something? So we can't really do anything in the immediate anyway about society as a whole. But we can control ourselves. I know what you're thinking. So when we take oaths, we can keep them. We can mean to keep them. When we go through anything from, I don't know, entrance into fraternities to graduation, we can make it real. Our baptismal promises, our confirmation promises, our marriage vows. We can all take this seriously. I mean,
Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no.
just so. We can actually do that. And Emperor Karl did. And this is why, although he would have led a very comfortable life if he'd been willing to renounce the throne, he believed, having recited the coronation oath, that he had to keep it until he died. That's why he made his 2 attempts to retake the crown of Hungary. We're not familiar with that kind of thing. In a lot of ways, we base our society upon lies.
And we assume that everyone's working on the same lies and that they're selfish.
Yeah,
So
and that gives us carte blanche to be the same.
yeah, but like it allows us to think that people that are actually doing things for not just themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, they're totally doing it for
They're getting
themselves.
something out of it.
Yeah, it's only good for them anyways.
And what's interesting is that the House of Habsburg, between the year 1829 and the year 1914, dumped $26 million into the Catholic Church in the United States, founded 400 parishes, financed 300 missionaries, including St. John Merlin, and sent over tons of statues, chalices, and windows and stuff. And where one does know in history that sometimes missionary efforts were financed by different countries for political gain, there was nothing Austria-Hungary could get out of the United States. Zip.
Yeah, and they basically sacrificed an archduke and a prince in Mexico.
Yep.
To the
Well,
oligarchy of Mexico and the United States.
And then in 1918, the whole country.
Big.
That 26 million made a great down payment on destruction and ruin.
Yeah.
Always smile, ladies and gentlemen.
I think that's how we gotta end it.
Yeah, I think so. But it has been a wonderful day in Dallas, Texas. We were going to do this in the Dealey Plaza, site of JFK's assassination, but we didn't.
Exactly, we did. Thank you everyone for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell button so you actually know when things come out. Blessed Charles or Bernobis. Charles, we can find you at Tumblr House and all over the internet.
Virgin Most Powerful Radio is brought out. I've just started it last Tuesday, so it'll be available Monday. A new podcast called The Never Ending Struggle, about different elements in church history.
Makes sense with you. Never ending.
Indeed, I'll never come to the end of it. You can read my stuff on the European Conservative, Catholicism.org, Crisis. Help me. 1 Peter 5.
With those plugs,
Oh, I hope that wasn't a plug. Oh, you're taking me right back to the 60s. There was always, they had talk shows, So what are you doing, Charles? Oh, this week I'll be appearing at the Palladium. Oh, is that a plug?
well, why else were they on the show? They were probably plugging. Of course not here.
Have you no sense of journalistic integrity? Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. If journalistic integrity isn't very expensive, it's not worth paying for at all. What? Who's feeding me these lines? What's wrong with this food?
I think the script has gone
I-
a little off.
I don't know. Something's wrong with the idiot cards, ladies and gentlemen.
We've lost the plot on Plotlines.
We've lost the thread line. Somehow I don't think we're on the county road anymore.
We've lost the tumble.
Tumblr house. We lost the house anyway. No,
No.
the tower is there. It's the
Oh,
house.
that
It's
the
gone.
house is gone.
Tower is
Well,
safe.
because you got to take care of the business.
Tyrone and
Yeah.
Rose and Lydia and all the gang.
But does Vincent really need a place to live?
Well, No, he doesn't really. I mean, he's got tons of suites in the tower.
Oh, okay, there you go, see, the house could go.
He's got tons of places. The there was this came up last week. What was it? Oh yeah, he and I haven't discussed this, but when I was in New England last week, New Jersey and New York, the joke was that the day that I finally remember what happened on the 15th floor, you know what they decided it was?
Uh, Friday the 13th.
I found myself in the Paramus Mall. The doors open and there I was. You shouldn't make fun of the Paramus Mall. New Jersey is a wonderful place.
Don't, you know, Anthony from Avoiding Babylon?
From Burning Babylon.
No, Avoiding Babylon, the game show.
No,
They've asked you on before.
well, maybe I've been on. I don't know.
No, you have, it's an evening and you'd be asleep.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he would disagree that New Jersey is great because he's from New York.
Well, so am I.
And you're, yeah, exactly.
So
So,
am I. But well, you'll notice with Vinny and me, we always trade places on Jersey. Sometimes he defends it and I attack it, and then vice versa.
well, how can he, well, I guess he is both sides because he's just Italian. So
It's just a
he's Italian, so he's got both sides.
yeah.
He can do
Indeed.
both sides.
It's not like the Irish, you know, like Sergeant O'Leary
Oh, yeah.
is walking his speed.
I
And
prefer
becomes a bartender.
transgender Winston Churchill.
Mom. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are in jokes. If you want to know what they're all about, you've got to watch off the menu. Otherwise,
Yes, exactly. That last part was just an advertisement.
that's true. A shameless grab for your attention.
I'm not getting paid.
No, no, that's
Exactly.
for sure.
That's
We
for
wouldn't
sure.
put out a pit. Anyway. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you for listening.
and it's been great. God bless.